Do you dream of writing a novel? When you feel the urgency to write a novel, you aren't making it up. When that urgency won't let go, there's a reason. Turn your readers into raving fans. Reveal the power of your voice and your story. Writing is an act of courage, and you have what it takes. How to Write a Novel That Sells by Lana McAra will take you across the finish line. Visit howtowriteanovelthatsells.net and take that powerful next step now.
Welcome to the Fiction Writers Podcast with Lana McAra, where you will discover tips, tricks, and ideas for fiction that is #unputdownable. Here you'll find new energy, new perspectives, new resources, and new ideas that will spark your creativity into a blaze of brilliance. It's easier than you think. Be sure you visit our website at www.fictionwriterspodcast.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, get out your notebook, tune in, and let's get started.
Do you have a strong message that you want to convey in your novels? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. My name is Lana McAra, and welcome to the Fiction Writers Podcast. Tips, tricks, and ideas for fiction that is #unputdownable. Today, I'm delighted to welcome a personal friend of mine, Jimmy Deas, to the broadcast. Jimmy is a retired pastor who draws from 40-plus years of ministry experiences to create the characters and plots of the Mark Thomas novels. His storybooks are collections of stories about people, places, and events. He writes for the faith-based market to communicate the gospel in a manner that isn't offensive or dogmatic. Welcome, Jimmy.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
I am so happy to have you here. You've got so many stories to tell, and I want you to share some of them with us today. So what was it that got you started writing fiction?
I am the poster face for accidental writers. That's what I call myself. I really never intended to become an author. I mean, it's kind of been a dream of mine, a thought for years, but not seriously. But during the years of 2013 and 2014, my wife was undergoing treatment in Gainesville for an incurable bone marrow disease. So we spent, on an average, 3 days a week in Gainesville. We may be at the hospital for hours every day. Well, I took my laptop just to pass the time. And I don't know, I just started writing stories and posting them on Facebook about people that I would see, conversations that I would have. Sometimes get to talking to somebody and they'd have a really interesting story out of their life, and I'd write about it. And then after a while, a friend contacted me and said, if you would collect those stories, they'd make a book. And I dismissed it. I really didn't think there was anything there. But he kept on kind of encouraging, I call it pestering me. And so finally, I did publish my first book, which was a collection of little stories about people. And in that first book, I did focus a good bit on some events out of my childhood and my teenage years and growing up, as well as some stories that I had written while I was in the hospital. And I say that it's like the old Lay's potato chip commercial. You can't eat just one. Once that first book was published, then the wheel started to turn. And in the back of my mind, there'd always been this little idea or plot. If I ever write a book, this is what it'll be about. And so I started playing with that. And it was 2.5 years of frustration, stop, start, like a lawnmower in bad need of repair. And finally, though, I reached a point, the book started writing itself, if that makes sense. It just kind of took on a life of its own. I would be writing, and suddenly I'd find myself putting things into the text, into my computer. My fingers were working. It was coming out of my brain, and I didn't really know where it was coming from. And it just, finally, after 2.5 years, the first novel, the Mark Thomas novel, was published. And I thought that'd be the end of it. I got it out of my system. But then people who read the first one started emailing, when is the sequel coming out? So I prayed about it, went back to the drawing board, collected some more experiences. Let me stop right there. The four Mark Thomas novels, most of the plots and the characters are based loosely on people that I've known, perhaps ministered to, crossed paths with in some way. Now, I try to change it around so nobody can go in and point the finger and say, oh, we know exactly who you're talking about. But anyway, I did that and I thought about it. So that was the second book, Just Have Faith. I thought that would be the end of it. Well, the same thing happened, and there was a third book and then a fourth book. And now I'm working on number 5, which is going to be the end of the series. I'm going to take him to the end of his ministerial career and shift him to a small town where he's going to kind of just phase out, so to speak. So I never really intended to do that. And then the other stories books, besides the Facebook blogs or posts that I would do, several years ago, I was asked to write a weekly column for the Lake City Reporter. And so I've used a number of those as well. And there are now 4 of those stories books, as I call them. And that's what they are, collections of little brief stories, about 700 words each, of people, places, events as you see it, or life as I see it sometimes. So that's, it's been a remarkable journey, and one that only God could have taken me on, because again, I did not really intend, didn't sit down and say, okay, I'm going to write a book or books one of these days. It just evolved over the past decade, so to speak. You made a point there that I hope it comes across in the novels, especially. Yes, there is gospel in it, but the novels are not just about a preacher or about church. They're about people, believable characters, as I like to call them, in real life situations. And how do we get through those difficult situations of life? In one of the novels, there's a suicide. There's all kinds of different human situations that we get ourselves into. And through the books, I try to illustrate, demonstrate how with faith, we can make it through it. Now, some of the characters in my books, they don't make it because they don't have that connection with God. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a lot. And when we were at the library, because you attend the class that I teach at the library here in Live Oak, you came up to me with a fascinating story about some situation you were researching, and you ran across someone who was a firsthand account. Do you remember that story?
Yes, that's the 5th novel that I'm working on. One of the plots has to do with someone in my wife's family who was murdered in Columbia County a number of years ago. And I had the opportunity, I've been researching it. I visited sheriff's departments and jails in Hamilton County, Columbia County, and Suwannee County, getting the input of various law enforcement officers, investigators, especially the crime scene investigators. But I had the opportunity to meet the new sheriff in Columbia County, introduce myself, and told him what I was working on. And he immediately picked up on it. He told me where the relative victim lived, and he was correct. I had not told him any of that. He told me where she lived, and then he really surprised me when he told me he was the one that arrested the man that had actually committed the murder, that he did the arrest. That was kind of one of those mind-blowing incidents there, just almost too good to be true.
Yes, we do run across those synchronicities, those rendezvous from time to time, don't we?
Yes.
So, do all your books have like a mystery or intrigue of some kind?
Yes, in every book there is some intrigue or mystery. I try to let it unfold through the book. In fact, there's usually one main mystery, so to speak. But as an author, you've got to have the supporting cast and subplots in it. The one I'm working on now actually is going to have 3 major events, so to speak, going on at the same time. The last book I wrote Ripples, I had 5 characters in it. Some not as important as a couple of main ones, but I had 5 different people in this one fictional community that are struggling and dealing with different issues in their life. And what led me to do that is, as I was working on the idea for that book, and as a pastor, I learned years ago, in any community, small, medium, large, it doesn't matter, there are folks dealing with issues every day. A lot of times, most of us don't know about it. The only reason I learned about some of the issues over the years, I happen to be the pastor, and they would come talk to me and share in confidence what was going on. But that's something that a lot of people don't stop and think about. Your next door neighbor could be going through a real struggle, a difficult time in life. We just never know about everything that's going on in the community. So I tried to kind of incorporate that into that novel, Ripples. We don't know. And I was reminded, my wife had her quarterly appointment recently at the cancer center in Gainesville. And a young woman came out. She had her appointment, came out, was waiting on her ride, sat down in the next chair. And when I asked, "How are you doing today?" she turned and simply said, "They've given me 6 months." I never would have guessed just by looking at her. We can't look at people and really know what's going on there. So that's the kind of thing. The next book I'm working on, we're going to have it's going to deal with domestic violence and abuse. It's going to deal with a high school senior who was left as an orphan and childless. What's going to happen to her? As well as some other things that are taking place.
Yes, this is really interesting. Real life, and it always, after all these years of being a novelist myself, it always fascinates me how much real life gives us material for our for our novels. So do you have all of your novels set in a small town, and where is that small town?
Well, yes, they are. I go back to something that I read years ago, attributed to Mark Twain. He said, "Write what you know." And I know small towns, I know Baptist churches, and I know about people that live in small towns. And so, yes, all 4 of my books now, I changed the names and I changed things around. But my first book, the location of that was Jennings, Florida, where I grew up. The second one I placed here in Live Oak, where I currently live. Then numbers 3 and 4, the location of them was Fernandina Beach, where I pastored for 5 years. But I changed the names and changed things around. Now, people who have lived in those communities, they read my books and they know every place that I'm referring to, even though I changed the name. And they can maybe even get an idea of some character that I'm based on in the book. But small towns, because that's what I know. That's what I know best. And there's a lot of good, interesting stories in small towns, believe me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So your series is it's not really, or is it? You tell me, is it really Live Oak, or is it Live Oak a little fictionalized?
Well, I changed the names of the places, but anybody who lived here, Live Oak, the setting, the time of that book, I put it in 1972, and my acquaintances who grew up here, even though I changed even the names of the stores and the restaurants, they know exactly which one I'm talking about. Now, I don't change a whole lot. For probably 50 to 60 years, the most notable restaurant in Live Oak has been the Dixie Grill, especially before the interstates were built and people traveled through on US 90. That was, everybody knew about the Dixie Grill. And so in the novel, I call the popular local restaurant the Southern Grill. I did the same thing in Fernandina Beach. Just tweak the real name of the most popular restaurant a little bit. But people that live in those places, they they quickly pick up on what I'm talking about. Now, again, I changed the characters, for example, that I use in the books in Fernandina Beach. They're based on people that I knew in other locations, so that anybody who lived in Fernandina Beach, they can't say, I know exactly who he's talking about, because that particular person and the incidents involved with that person, they didn't happen in that community.
Okay, I see. So you're switching back and forth between the two places, and therefore, you got a little buffer between, the potential of being sued or using somebody's name without permission or something like that. So yeah, have you had any tense moments about that?
Yes, the one I shared in our meeting the other day. In my first book, based in my hometown, Jennings, 1965, I changed the name. We had a little part-time policeman. He was a farmer, but for some reason he handled the unruly crowd down at the bar on Saturday night. That's basically what he did. And I described him as best I remembered him in every detail, even down to his chain smoking. But I did give him a different name. A few years ago, after that book was published, I was doing a book signing in Fernandina Beach. I was welcoming the people coming into the bookstore. And as I started to welcome this couple, before I could say a word, the man said, "The policeman in your book was my uncle." And that did cause a brief panic. I did not remember the man who was speaking to me. Once he introduced himself, I remembered him. He was a small boy when his family moved from Jennings, so I never really knew him. But I quickly made the connection between his family and the policeman in the book, and we kind of had a laugh about it. But then I asked him, did I do a good job of describing your uncle? And his response was, yes, except you left out the four-letter words, which that particular man, he had a habit of using four-letter words. But as a pastor and a Christian author, I never use those words. In any place in my book where one of the characters, where this situation calls for it and they might use a four-letter word, I just put in, he used an expletive, and let it go at that. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to offend anybody. And if my mother were still alive, I would know better than to do that.
Yeah. So what are some of the measures that you do to keep people from knowing who the person is, the character? How do you switch up to prevent that from happening most of the time?
Again, I will take a character, and I don't try to portray them exactly in all of their features. If I describe them, I might change their height, their weight. Do they wear glasses? Did he have a receding chin? Those kinds of things. And the incidents. There's one of the stories, one of the characters in the latest novel, there are Ripples, that I place in Fernandina Beach, but I call it Dorado Beach. I didn't do, John Grisham wrote 3 novels about Fernandina Beach, Amelia Island, and he calls it Camino Island. Again, I lived there for 5 years. I've read his books and I know basically the places he's talking about, even though he gives them different names as well. But one of the characters and plots in the book, Fernandina Beach, Dorado Beach, was based on the real incident that I had in Orlando 35 years ago, maybe. Total stranger came to the church one day and had to get something off his chest about an incident in Vietnam. It had troubled him, bothered him so much that he had become an alcoholic. And in a 2-week span of time, now 20 years had passed since he was in Vietnam, but he had become an alcoholic to the point that in a 2-week span, he lost a very good paying job as a sales rep, and his wife packed up the 3 kids and she went back home. His life had bottomed out, and he came and he just needed some guidance and advice. And the thing that was tormenting, haunting him was one of somebody in his unit had killed their superior officer on purpose. And even though he was not guilty of that, he felt that he was a coward because he had been complicit in covering it up. And so I kind of tweaked that and made a character like that in my last novel. And his wife finally gives him the ultimatum: you will get some counseling, or the marriage is over with. We can't continue like this, because he was having fender benders under the influence of alcohol, and she was afraid he was going to kill someone or kill himself. That's in the book now. That's in the book. But there's nobody in Fernandina Beach that could read that and say, I know who you're talking about, because that character did not live there. And I don't even know the man's name. He wouldn't even give me his name. He came in, he told me his story. We had a long talk. I prayed with him. Never heard from him after that. I don't know. I'm just hoping that maybe things turned out for the better.
Yes. It is so interesting, the dramatic events that we come across in our daily lives. So my husband and my ex-husband and I were missionaries in the Caribbean. We were living on a very primitive Caribbean island, Grenada. Reagan sent the troops years ago. And there were several other missionary families that were Americans, maybe 5, scattered across the island. And there was a young family that had 3 children. And actually, she had just had a baby, so they had 4 at that point. And they were having marital issues. And she called me on the phone. We didn't have a phone very long on that place. We lived there for a long time without a phone. But we had got a phone. She called me up and she says, I've got to leave. I've got to get out of here. He is just terrorizing the family. He's terrorizing us. She said, he's locking up the kids' books. He won't let us watch anything or read a book. And he's calling me when he goes out. He'll call me up and say, who's in the house? I sure you have a man in the house. It was like a psychotic break. He was going crazy. What do I do? She said, we're in a third world country across the ocean. And I had really no idea about that. And I said, call the American Embassy. Tell them what he's doing and ask them for help. And she did that. And the embassy came and picked them up and took them to the airport, put them in a hotel overnight, took them to the airport with soldiers. So in case he showed up, there would be someone to defend them, and put them on a plane. And guess what? He did show up. And they did stand him down and put his family on a plane back to the U.S. So those kind of things, they just kind of show up in your reality. And as a writer, I mean, that's like going to the grocery store.
The first novel, and this is the thing, for some reason. Of course, it was a very personal experience. It's a very traumatic experience. And it stuck in my mind for years. And it became, I call it, it was the diving board, the launching point of my first novel. The book opens, I'm giving away here, but the first one, Ran Like Joseph, it opens with a teenage boy about dark running across US 41 in Jennings, and he's hit by a car. Well, when I was a teenager, my dad sent me to the grocery store for a loaf of bread one night, told me to avoid US 41 and to take one of the back streets. Well, a church was having a revival, and as I drove by the church, a little girl ran out in front of the car. I did hit the brakes. I didn't run over her, but the impact was enough to shatter her hip. She had to have surgery. And that was traumatic for me, as I was only 15 at the time. I didn't have my real driver's license. I had a learner's permit. So that caused some insurance problems for my dad there. But I'm happy to say that she recovered. And all these years later, we're Facebook friends. We stay in contact with one another. But that incident had just, been a part of my life since I was a teenager. And for some reason, that became the starting point for Ran Like Joseph. So, and as you well know, you and I you've shared some of your own personal experiences. from your life that found their way into your books as well. What we're talking about here, I read an article, interview with James Patterson several months ago. And the interviewer asked him, where do you get your ideas? And I'm kind of paraphrasing. I don't remember word for word, but basically what James Patterson said was, just watch life, watch people, look around you. And he talked about, gave the example of, he was driving down the street one day and he saw an elderly man wobbling on a bicycle. And he said that, just a few seconds of viewing that man on the bicycle, he said it turned into, goodness knows how many, an enormous number of pages in a book just from seeing the man on the bicycle there. So.
Yes, it's just a matter of opening your consciousness and being aware of what's going on around you, and the hard times as well as the good times. I mean, there have been times when I've been at a funeral and someone strikes my attention. This person, the way they are captures my attention, and I'll be writing on the back of the program a description of this person because I'm so captivated. And so I think part of being a writer is to notice.
Mm-hmm. And, I hope I'm doing a better job of that, but I think back over the years and I say, gosh, I wish I paid more attention back then to that. I had a good example of that the other day. I went to Tallahassee with our daughter who had a meeting. And so to waste an hour and a half, I went to the mall. I'm looking around, walking through Dillard's, and sales lady asked, could she help me? And I thanked her, but told her what I was doing. And we just kind of started a little conversation and about growing up in little towns. And she told me, and I've been trying to get back with her. I've got her phone number, but I just haven't been able to get in touch with her. She said she grew up in a small town out in the Panhandle, and there was no doctor in the little town, maybe even in the county back then, because we're talking 60-something years ago. She was delivered. Now, her mother was an older teenager, unmarried, and she was delivered by the local veterinarian in his vet office.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, that in itself makes a good story. Well, she was adopted, and she had good adoptive parents. She had good upbringing, had a career with the state. And a few years ago, someone encouraged and helped her. She had no information about her birth mother, none whatsoever, but she was able to get some information about her father. And so she made some contacts, and she has made contact with her half siblings in the state of Tennessee and developed a relationship. And she told me, she says, after 60 years of not knowing, she said, for the last few years now, I have a family. But I'm going to get back with her and get more of the details about the vet's offices being delivered by a veterinarian. But, again, I don't need to tell you, you see it yourself. We are surrounded by people that have good stories, or something someone will see, or some incident will say, oh, I can put that into a book. So.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So what's coming up for you? Are you going to start a new series now that you're going to retire your main guy?
Well, I'm going to retire him. And I was talking to our good friend Dolores recently and told her what I was doing. And she said, well, then he has a son who is now an adult. He was born in one of the earlier books. He's now an adult, and he's a school teacher. She said, why don't you bring him into the ministry and start a series about him? So I really don't know what I would really like to do, but I just don't know that I'm capable of doing all of the research and background. My first Deas ancestor came to the colonies. I don't need to say America. Came to the colonies from Scotland in 1700. Now, during that period of time in Scotland, they went through several years of extreme famine and bitter winters. It's estimated that between 15 and 20% of the Scottish population died either of starvation or they froze to death. Well, it was during that time that this 20-year-old ancestor of mine, he signs up, he becomes an indentured servant, and he comes to Virginia. I have the name of the man that sponsored him, And because that man brought him over here, the crown gave that man, he was already a landowner, but they gave him an additional 2 acres of land for my ancestor to farm. And so he worked off his 7 years, and then he married a woman from England who had indentured herself as well. They had 4 sons. I'm descended from one of the sons. I would love to do a historical fiction novel about one of my ancestors somewhere along the line. My family on my dad's side, they were in Florida by 1830, not long after the Indian Wars ended. Seminoles got pushed south, the Creeks got pushed into Alabama, and the land was open, and they came in from South Georgia. Maybe to create something about a fictional ancestor who comes from South Georgia into North Florida, young single man, got to have some romance in it somewhere there, and develop that. So yeah, I've kind of thought about that, and we'll just have to see where it goes. I've got to finish this novel first and kind of retire my character, Mark Thomas, and his wife.
We always have a couple in the pipeline, don't we?
Right. You know, I talk to my peers. Now I'm older than you are. I'll be 78 this year, and I talk to some of my peers, people that I've known most of my life, and sadly to say, they're not doing much with their lives. And I'm at that point. I don't think I'm going to live long enough to do everything that I want to do. I really do. Like you say, one idea leads to another, and one project to another, and you want to do these things. And I think I could continue publishing the stories books, because I continue writing 2 or 3 blogs a week or post on Facebook, plus that weekly column for the newspaper. And so maybe that's the future of my writing right there.
Wow, this has been amazing. So do you have a book coming up soon, or what's your publishing schedule look like right now?
The book that I'm working on, the 5th in the series, where I take him. Actually, I'm going to take my character, Mark Thomas, the preacher, and his wife back to the county where they started out, which is basically my home county of Hamilton County. She was a resident. He came there to pastor the little Baptist church as a single man, and they fall in love. They get married. I'm taking them back there to another church in that county, and that will be the end of that series then. And I don't really have a schedule. I really, every week I say, okay, my goal is to crank out 1,000 words a day. Well, that doesn't happen every day, as you know. Things come up, they happen. I've got other things. I'm preaching 2 to 3 Sundays a month. This weekend, I've got a wedding, so that's a Friday night rehearsal, a Saturday wedding, preaching on Sunday morning. In a couple of weeks, I'll be in Jacksonville for a book signing at San Marco Books and More. And so all of these other things, something always derails my commitment to write 1,000 words a day. So.
That's such a common story. I hear that from authors all the time. There's just so many other things to do besides write.
Yes. And then there's the personal family things. My wife and I, we like to take one day a week and just get out and do something together. Go somewhere, little day trips, as we call them. And so, but that's okay. I'm having fun with what I'm doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, give us your website.
I don't have one.
Oh, you're on Facebook. Where
I'm on Facebook, and now Amazon has given me, I guess it's a web page. Mm-hmm. Amazon has given me, and if you put in Amazon.com/author/Jimmy Deas, that takes you directly to my page. You don't have to go through any of the upfront stuff, type anything in. Just put in Amazon.com/author/Jimmy Deas. Our friend Jolene keeps telling me I need a website, and that's another one of those things I'm working on. Maybe I'll get there and do that as well. But yes, I'm on Facebook. I have a personal, and then I have one just for my author. And so between the two of them, I'm connected to roughly 3,000 people. And just one comment about that. I wrote a I call it a blog, but an article that I put on Facebook last week about the little church over in Lee, Florida, in the next county, where my family attended when I was a small boy, and about the preacher that was there and an incident that happened one Sunday when he had to call me and a friend down for talking too loud in church as 7-year-old boys. I wrote about that and put it on Facebook. And as of this morning, it had exceeded 6,000 views,
Wow.
which, is an indication of just the potential of Facebook
Yes.
and how many people could be reached there. So,
Yes, indeed. And I have to say that your 40 plus years in the ministry in this area has really been great for people knowing you. I've been in public where we had a table somewhere in the public and everybody loves Jimmy. I got to tell you.
well, I pastored 20, and actually I've been retired soon be 12 years. Let's stop doing my math there. So really, we have been here 32 years, and we definitely are part of the community in so many different ways. Yes.
That is just wonderful. So if you live in a small town, don't forget to look around. There's a lot of stories out there you could be telling. Jimmy, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Lana. I appreciate it.
And thank you for being with us today. See you next time.
Thank you for tuning into the Fiction Writers Podcast with Lana McAra, where we share tips, tricks, and ideas for fiction that is #unputdownable. Remember to visit our website at www.fictionwriterspodcast.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Fiction Writers Podcast.